The right Baumit composite thermal insulation system for every facade. Economical external wall insulation which has been tried and tested for over 30 years. It saves energy. Thermal insulation keeps the building cool in summer and warm in winter, providing more comfort throughout the whole year. Thermal insulation enhances the appearance of your building. The finishing of the facade increases the value of the property. The facade is a building's visiting card. Use the different plaster textures to model your facade and achieve a lively appearance tailored to your personal ideas through the use of color. Before beginning work, the substrate should be checked for stability, porosity and evenness. Any impurities, such as dust, mortar remnants, etc., should be removed. In the case of very uneven surfaces, a layer of suitable plaster, for example Baumit MPA 35, should be applied. A level reference line should be marked to allow precise installation of the base profile. This represents the upper edge of the base profile. The drill holes are marked along the level reference line at intervals of approximately 30 centimeters and drilled with a diameter of 6 millimeters. The profiles are fixed in place using the anchors and screws from the Baumit installation set. The sections of the base profiles are connected using the connectors from the installation set. The spaces from the installation set are used for slightly uneven areas and fitted between the masonry and the base profile. Joints in the masonry, for example in the case of immediately adjoining buildings, are left clear. In the inner corner area, the base profiles are butt joined during installation. The corner base profile can be used for rectangular external corner areas. For all other corner areas, the base profiles must be cut to shape accordingly using an angle grinder or tin shears. The adhesive compound for bonding the panels is stirred with a stirrer in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. After being left to stand for 5 to 10 minutes, the adhesive is briefly stirred again. When bonding the panel, the adhesive is applied using the edge bead spot method. At least 40% of the contact surface of the panel with the substrate must be covered with adhesive. The panels are laid in an offset pattern from bottom to top on the surface and in the corner area. Joints between insulation panels must not extend into the edges of wall openings, otherwise this leads to an increased risk of cracking. A spirit level or baton is used to check that the panels have been laid straight and flat. Any joints between the insulation panels should be closed using the corresponding insulation panel material. When bonding the panels in place, no adhesive should be allowed to penetrate into the joints between the panels in order to prevent cold bridges being formed later. The projecting part of the insulation panel in the corner area must also be free of adhesive. Again, joints in the masonry are left clear. The insulation panels on the facade project into the area of the opening by a distance equal to the thickness of the reveal panels. These are now fitted flush with the facade insulation panels. A styrofoam cutter or hand saw or Stanley knife is used to cut the panels to shape. After the adhesive has set, usually on the following day, any uneven areas or raised joints between EPS panels are sanded down with an emery board and the surface dusted off. If the substrate requires anchoring, this is ideally done according to the W plan when using the rock wool system and according to the T plan when using the EPS system, but with at least 6 anchors per square meter in the surface area. However, up to 12 anchors per square meter may be necessary in the edge areas, at least 1 meter, maximum 2 meters, depending on the height of the building, the nature of the site, and local wind conditions. Both screw anchors and drive anchors can be used. The depth of the drilled holes is determined by the total of the thickness of the insulation panel and the necessary anchoring depth in the substrate. The anchors are inserted flush with the surface of the insulation panel. The screw anchors shown here are sealed with a cap, and the anchor heads are then smoothed over with compound. To achieve optimal sealing of the anchor area, the screw anchors shown here can also be countersunk using a grinding bit, and then sealed with a rondelle made of insulation panel material. Masonry joints are now closed with an expansion joint profile, with an E profile on the surface and with a V profile at the inner corners. For this purpose, the adhesive compound is applied with a toothed trowel. The glass fiber fabric of the profile is bedded in with the trowel. Here too, as with the expansion joint profile, a corresponding profile is embedded in the adhesive compound and additionally fixed in place with nails, which are removed again the following day. However, the connection can also be butt joined. For a technically perfect and clean finish to the facade in the base area, the base profile strip is plugged onto the base profile from below, bonded and then plastered in place. Edge protection profiles are fitted in the same way in order to allow the edge area to be reinforced and exactly formed. The window or door connection profiles are now bonded directly to the window frame in the vicinity of the reveal panel. The opening is then covered with sheeting with the aid of the adhesive strips on the profiles. Areas, such as window areas or roof connections, should generally be protected using adhesive tape or sheeting. As on the edges of the building, corresponding profiles are also fitted to the edges of the openings and plastered in together with the connection profiles. Reinforcing strips are additionally embedded in the inner corners of the openings. Internal and external filling is recommended for precise professional formation and finishing of these areas. Additional reinforcing strips in the form of diagonal reinforcements are also plastered into place in front of the surface reinforcement at the corners of the window and door openings. The size of the strips is approximately 20 cm by 40 cm. In order to achieve a level substrate for the rock wool, a leveling layer at least 2 mm thick is applied with the toothed trowel and smoothed with the smoothing trowel. This can be done at the same time as installing the various profiles and additional reinforcement. At least 3 days setting time. The adhesive compound is first applied to the facade using the toothed trowel 10 by 10 mm and smoothing trowel. The glass fiber fabric is pressed into the adhesive compound from top to bottom with the steel trowel and smoothed. The individual webs must overlap by at least 10 centimeters. The reinforcing fabric is cut to size using a Stanley knife. The surface is leveled using the steel trowel and the edges drawn off cleanly with a small trowel. The glass fiber fabric must be embedded in the middle of the layer of undercoat plaster and must not be visible on the surface. In this case, the XPS-R panel is bonded to the masonry as on the facade and is always anchored, 4 anchors per square meter. To achieve high mechanical strength, it is recommended that Baumit heavy-duty reinforcement fabric be embedded first. In this case, the fabric is not overlapped. After a drying time of at least 24 hours, the surface is reinforced as usual with Baumit glass fiber fabric. After the undercoat plaster has been left to dry for at least 5 days, Baumit Universal Primer is applied with a sheepskin roller after stirring as a bonding agent and sealant. After the primer has been left to dry for 1 day, the top coat can be applied. Ready-to-use plasters only need to be stirred. Powder-formed plasters need to be mixed with water. The material is applied in single grain thickness using a steel trowel. The surface is then rubbed in a circular motion with a plastic board. It is important to scrape off the surplus material. If too much material is applied, or if it is applied in uneven quantities, this affects the creation of an optimal texture and, depending on the material, patches may be formed. As a basic rule, a minimum coating thickness of 1.5 mm should be maintained. In order to finish certain areas, for example window frames, in a different color or with a different texture, the corresponding part of the facade is first marked out in outline and then masked with adhesive tape. The desired top coat plaster is then applied. Surplus material is as usual scraped off and the area is then rubbed with the plastic board. The adhesive tape is then removed together with the protective sheeting over the openings. The adhesive strips on the connection profiles are bent at the break points and are also simply stripped away. After a drying time of at least 1 day, the already plastered area is masked off again with adhesive tape and the rest of the facade given a top coat. In creating the grooved texture, the surface can also be rubbed vertically or horizontally, rather than in a circular motion. The top coat of the base can be applied using the same top coat plaster as used on the facade, or, alternatively, Baumit mosaic plaster can be used. This is also first stirred with the stirrer and applied in single grain thickness using a steel trowel and smoothing trowel. Once work on the facade has been completed, the window ledges can now be fitted and installed. Economical external wall insulation with the Baumit composite thermal insulation system means energy saving, more living space and individual style. For every building, there is an appropriate system in which all the components are matched to the requirements of the substrate and the applicable building regulations.